Themistocles, the man who saved Western civilization. Night covered the narrow waters of Salamis in 480 BC. Hundreds of Greek ships waited in silence between the dark hills and the sea. Men gripped wooden oars with bleeding hands. Bronze armor creaked softly in the cold wind. Across the water, fires from the Persian fleet burned like a second line of stars. Somewhere beyond those flames stood the greatest empire the world had yet seen. King Xerxes had marched into Greece with perhaps hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Athens already lay behind him in ashes. Its temples smoked under the moonlight. Its people had fled to the islands like refugees escaping the end of the world. And in the center of that terrible silence stood one man who had convinced the Greeks not to surrender. Themistocles knew the truth no one else dared to speak. If the Greek fleet lost by morning, Greece itself would disappear. Its cities would become Persian provinces. Its laws, its philosophers, its experiments in democracy, all of it would end in a single day. Yet the strangest part was this: many Greeks hated him almost as much as they feared the Persians. Before dawn arrived, Themistocles had to gamble everything on a plan so dangerous that even his allies believed it bordered on madness. History later remembered Salamis as a heroic Greek victory. Schoolbooks turned Themistocles into a simple patriot who saved his homeland through courage and intelligence. That version was not entirely false. But it hid the most important parts of the story. Themistocles was not born into greatness. Many aristocrats considered him vulgar and dangerous. He manipulated allies, deceived enemies, and frightened even his own people with the scale of his ambition. Some ancient writers almost described him as a political predator wearing the mask of a savior. And yet, without him, the ancient world might have taken a completely different path. This was the story of how one outsider transformed Athens into a naval power before anyone understood why it mattered. It was the story of the secret message that trapped the Persian fleet at Salamis. And it was the story of how the man who saved Greece eventually died far from the city he rescued. The deeper question was far more unsettling. Did civilization survive because of Themistocles, or despite him? Long before the fires of Salamis lit the sea, Greece had been a fractured world of rival cities. Athens, Sparta, Corinth, and dozens of smaller states fought each other almost constantly. There was no Greek nation. There was only competition, pride, and suspicion. Sparta ruled through fear and military discipline. Athens, by contrast, remained an uncertain experiment. Its democracy was young and fragile. Power shifted violently between aristocrats and common citizens. Wealthy families controlled most political life, and ordinary men often struggled simply to survive. Life itself was harsh beyond modern imagination. Disease moved through crowded streets without warning. A failed harvest could destroy an entire family. Most people never traveled far beyond their own city walls. The sea connected the Greek world, but it also carried pirates, invaders, and famine. Then came Persia. The Persian Empire stretched across 3 continents. Its kings commanded immense armies and enormous wealth. To many Greeks, resisting Persia seemed as impossible as resisting a storm or an earthquake. Several Greek cities surrendered without a fight. Others argued that resistance would only lead to annihilation. Yet one surprising fact changed everything. The Persian kings did not always destroy conquered peoples. In many places, they allowed local customs and religions to survive. Greek fear was therefore mixed with temptation. Submission promised safety. Resistance promised ruin. That was the world into which Themistocles entered. He was born around 524 BC, the son of a respectable but not fully aristocratic family. His mother may even have been a foreigner, a detail his enemies later used against him. In elite Athenian society, blood mattered deeply. Themistocles entered politics carrying a permanent stain in the eyes of powerful men. But exclusion sharpened him. While noble families admired poetry and tradition, Themistocles studied people. He memorized names. He listened to dockworkers and sailors. He understood something the aristocrats did not: Athens' future would not be decided by land armies alone. It would be decided by the sea. Most Greeks still thought like farmers. Themistocles thought like an empire builder. And that single difference changed history. His first great test arrived after the Battle of Marathon in 490 BC, when Athens defeated an earlier Persian invasion. Many Athenians believed the danger had passed. Celebration filled the city. Veterans became heroes overnight. Themistocles saw something terrifying beneath the victory. Persia had lost a battle, not the war. He began arguing for a massive navy unlike anything Athens had ever built. His opponents mocked him. Ships were expensive. Rowers came mostly from poorer citizens, which meant naval power would also increase the political influence of the lower classes. Aristocrats feared that almost as much as Persia itself. Then fortune intervened. A rich silver deposit was discovered near Athens. Many citizens wanted the profits distributed directly among the people. Themistocles stood before the assembly and demanded something shocking instead: the money should build warships. It was an enormous gamble. Had he failed, Athens might have turned against him permanently. But he pushed forward with relentless force. Ancient writers later claimed that he possessed a mind too strong for ordinary matters. Even allies sometimes feared the intensity of his ambition. What kind of man convinced a divided city to spend its fortune preparing for a war that had not yet arrived? Ship by ship, Athens transformed itself. Hundreds of triremes filled its harbors. Thousands of ordinary citizens became trained rowers. Without fully realizing it, Athens had begun building the foundations of its future empire. Then Xerxes invaded Greece. His army crossed the Hellespont on bridges of boats. Entire rivers reportedly disappeared because Persian soldiers drank them dry. Whether exaggerated or not, the stories reflected genuine terror. The Persian advance seemed unstoppable. Some Greeks surrendered immediately. Others argued endlessly about strategy. Sparta focused on land warfare. Many leaders wanted to abandon Athens entirely. Themistocles understood that the war would be won at sea or lost forever. After the famous Spartan defeat at Thermopylae, panic spread across Greece. Athens evacuated its population. Families crowded onto ships carrying whatever possessions they could save. Behind them, Persian troops entered the empty city and burned it to the ground. Smoke rose above the Acropolis. And still the Greek alliance nearly collapsed. At Salamis, many commanders wanted to retreat south. Themistocles knew retreat meant disaster. In open waters, the larger Persian fleet would surround and destroy them. So he made the decision that defined his life. He secretly sent a message to Xerxes. The message claimed that the Greeks were terrified and preparing to escape. If the Persians attacked immediately, he said, they could trap the Greek fleet. It was a lie designed to force battle in the narrow straits. The risk was almost beyond reason. If Xerxes recognized the deception, Themistocles would become history's greatest traitor. If the battle failed, Greece would cease to exist as an independent civilization. Morning came. Persian ships pushed into the narrow waters exactly as Themistocles intended. Their numbers became a weakness instead of an advantage. Greek triremes rammed through the crowded enemy lines with splintering force. Oars snapped. Men drowned beneath bronze-covered hulls. From a throne on the shore, Xerxes watched his fleet collapse. Themistocles had done what almost no one believed possible. He had stopped the Persian advance and preserved Greek independence at the very edge of destruction. But victory carried a cost. Athens emerged from the war powerful, proud, and increasingly ambitious. The navy Themistocles built soon allowed the city to dominate much of the Greek world. Democracy expanded, but so did imperial behavior. Allies slowly became subjects. Tribute money flowed into Athens from across the Aegean Sea. Themistocles himself became both celebrated and feared. Success had sharpened the arrogance already inside him. Ancient sources described him as brilliant but restless, hungry for recognition, unable to live quietly. Rivals gathered against him. In democratic Athens, greatness often created enemies faster than admiration. Then the political tide turned. Years after Salamis, accusations of corruption and treason surrounded him. Some charges were probably exaggerated. Others may have contained truth. The man who had saved Athens now found himself isolated from it. Eventually, the city exiled him. The irony was almost unbearable. The defender of Greece fled from the very civilization he preserved. Worse still, his journey ended in Persia, the empire he had once defeated. There, according to several ancient accounts, the Persian king treated him with remarkable respect. Themistocles reportedly learned the Persian language and entered royal service. Some later writers even claimed he was asked to lead campaigns against Greece itself. Whether he truly accepted such plans remains uncertain. But the hinge of his life had already turned. The savior of Athens died far from Athens, somewhere in Asia Minor around 459 BC. Ancient tradition held that he took poison rather than betray his homeland completely. Other accounts suggested a quieter death from illness. Even in death, mystery followed him. And perhaps it always had. The silence before Salamis returned at the end of his story. A man stood between worlds, trusted fully by neither side, carrying the burden of decisions that altered history forever. The central question finally revealed its answer. Civilization survived partly because of Themistocles' genius, and partly because Greece was willing, for one brief moment, to follow a man many did not even like. Without Themistocles, the consequences would have stretched far beyond one battle. Classical Athens might never have risen to cultural dominance. The democratic experiments that shaped later political thought could have disappeared in infancy. The works of Aeschylus, Sophocles, Herodotus, and later philosophers emerged from a Greek world that survived long enough to produce them. Even the idea that ordinary citizens could hold political power gained strength because Greece remained independent after the Persian Wars. Yet history often judged Themistocles unevenly. Some ancient writers portrayed him almost as a hero touched by destiny. Others painted him as manipulative and morally dangerous. Both versions contained truth. He possessed extraordinary vision, but also immense personal ambition. He defended democracy while concentrating influence around himself. He saved Athens, yet died rejected by it. That contradiction was precisely what made him so important. History rarely changed because of perfect people. More often, it changed because flawed individuals saw danger before everyone else did, and acted while others hesitated. Few human beings ever bent the survival of civilization around a single decision. Themistocles did. So the debate remained alive after more than 2,000 years. Did Themistocles deserve to be remembered as Greece's greatest savior, or as the first architect of Athenian imperial ambition? Perhaps the more unsettling truth was that he became both at once. And if stories like this still mattered, stories of fragile civilizations, impossible decisions, and deeply imperfect people who changed the course of history, then this journey through the ancient world was only beginning.